What's up, guys? Welcome to my channel. My name is DePaul Foxworth, and this is me vlogging my life. So right now, what I've been up to lately financially is I have been focused on buying and keeping businesses, and in that particular order, buying and then keeping them. So right now, I'm focused on small businesses. So small businesses, for those who don't know or do know, are any business that's doing $10 million a year in revenue or less. Okay, that's considered small market. Anything over a small business, anything over 10 million a year in revenue is considered like mid-sized to medium market business. And so the reason that I've decided to embark on this is something that I've always wanted to do. One of the things that I feel like I've done early on in my entrepreneurial career, I've been an entrepreneur for now 9 years. The thing that I focused on is I focused heavily on income. And so the reason I was focusing on income so much was because that's what I was surrounded by whenever I was coming up. First, I started off with a marketing agency, and the goal at that time back in like 2017, 2018 was to make $10,000 a month online. And so I accomplished that once I invested in coaching and mentorship and all those things. But the beauty of those skills is that it taught me how to create systems, how to bring on a team, how to generate leads online, all that stuff. And so fast forward, I ended up selling that business later while it was going down. And so in selling it while it was going down, I recognized that when you sell a business, you always want to sell it while you're excited, not while it's like not doing good, because obviously you're going to get a lower valuation. So obviously I didn't sell it for that much. But hey, I was able to sell something that I created from my brain, so that was awesome. But past that, the biggest lessons I learned about it was a very well systemized business, but it also took energy and passion to grow it. And I think that's any business. But fast forward, went from 10K a month, then 20K a month, and 30K a month, and 50K a month, and 60K a month. And this is top line revenue. In the agency model, I was netting about I'd say about 25% margin. But when I got into consulting, my margins went up to about 50, 60%. And so with that being said, what I've learned throughout, I would call that my initial 7 to 7.5 years of doing business and making money online, was that being focused on how much income you make every month is a false focus. Like, it's a false fallacy. And the reason I say that is because it just depends on your goals. I'm 32 now. I am more focused on spending and valuing time with my family. I remember there would be times where I would be at an amusement park with my kids, and even though I'm at the amusement park, I'm like thinking about systems, thinking about payroll, thinking about marketing and all this stuff, and I feel like I had to always be on. And so I remember one time in particular, we were at Universal Studios because we lived in Orlando at the time, and I was literally having to like shoot content while I'm at Universal and spending time with my kids. And the thing about that is that content was what I needed in order to grow the online personal brand I was building at that time. And so now obviously I'm just shooting content for fun, but it had an end game, in mind, as far as, that content monetize my services that we offer in regards to funding and raising capital for small businesses. And so for me, one of the biggest things and drawbacks was that if I wasn't doing that because I was chasing income, then the income would obviously go down. And so even though it was high income, it was very volatile from that experience. And so once I ended up closing that and being obedient to God in that closing, I started recognizing, because I had about a year to sit back and really think about my life. And so I call it my first exit experience. And so when I say my first exit experience is whenever founders of a business, whether it's a small business or a medium or a large size business, exit their business, they generally get a lump sum for the value of their business. And when they get that lump sum, they have all this cash, but they have nothing but time, right? Because now they don't have payroll to worry about. They don't have systems to worry about. They don't have scale to worry about. And so for me, God did it in a different way. He literally just cut all my income off and was like, it's time to humble you. And so it's like I had an exit experience, because ultimately I had no payroll at that point. I had to close everything down, right? It was a very stressful, emotionally taxing process, but it was his only way to basically center me, to basically lean on him. And so whenever that happened, I started realizing that with all the income that I had made during that time, I basically was just, I was off in that money, and I was blowing it on lifestyle. I was using it for lifestyle marketing, right? I had bought nice cars, right? I had all these annual passes. I'm eating these fine dining dinners, yachts in Miami, all this stuff. And when I basically had to close everything down, and I looked at what my life looked like at that time, I recognized quickly that, wow, I was swimming with no swimming trunks on. So I was in the ocean, and when the tide pulled back, I didn't have no trunks on, man. I was sitting there butt naked. And so the biggest lesson to me in that process was I ended up moving back to Louisiana, and I realized people here lived a lot more simple. Like my BMW that I had when I came back, and my Escalade that I had when I came back, it stood out. Where in Orlando, Florida, it didn't. It seemed like everybody had, you know, similar luxury vehicles. But when I moved back here, I was like, man, people, like the average person drives a mid-size sedan, you know, and they just live very, what I would consider frugal, right? Because if you're being flashy, it's like for who, right? Like who are you trying to impress? Because there's nobody to impress here. Not saying there's people to impress in Orlando, but it's like you don't have to, you know, essentially put on, I would say. And so when I noticed that moving back here, I was like, man, I don't really need this car. Like I'm actually just making myself a target if I have this nice car in this area where people don't have cars that are this nice. And so it just made more sense, you know, to just start getting rid of that stuff. It also helped strip an identity of pride that I carried while having it. And so in getting rid of those things, my liabilities on my balance sheet, because on the balance sheet you have your assets and you have your liabilities, right? On my balance sheet, I started wiping away my liabilities. And so anything that I had debt on that required a monthly payment, those all started going away, okay? Some of it by force, some of it by I just basically sold it or got rid of it. And so just because you may own something free and clear, if there's a maintenance cost to it every month and there's no income being produced by that thing, it is also a liability too. So I got rid of, like my Escalade was completely paid off, but God told me to gift it to someone. And so I did that on obedience. But the beauty in that was it blessed that person, it blessed me in the experience, but it also allowed me to remove a liability off my balance sheet because, you know, $1,000 for tires, I couldn't afford that anymore. You know, the $200 oil change, I couldn't afford that anymore. So all that stuff, it ended up being a blessing for me, you know. The BMW as well, that ended up going back to the bank. And so with that showed me whenever you're flush with cash and you have a bunch of money coming in, I should have been more balance sheet focused and not so much chasing higher income focus. And what I mean by that is I should have took some of that money off the table and I should have put it in something that was going to pay a low return. So whether it be real estate, whether it be another business, but at least the money was in something that then if it was making a low return, I could at least sell that or get the money right back out, that principal back out. And so that's what being balance sheet focused is. So it's focusing on buying actual assets first versus chasing the next high income vehicle. And so so that's my biggest lesson I learned from being a young man now to being an older man. I'm still young, but I want to be more balance sheet focused, you know, moving forward for the rest of my life. And so do I regret any of those experiences? Absolutely not. It was one of the best times of my life. And the reason I like that is because I got a chance to see what it was like to have an affluent lifestyle, which in my opinion, I feel like I really couldn't afford it. Even though I was making the money to obviously pay the expenses that lifestyle required, I didn't have assets to where I could really sit back and not even worry about it, right? I had to always be chasing it every month. So my foundational expenses were like $16,000 a month. And so as a 30-year-old guy, like that means I had to at least make $20,000 to $30,000 a month net to cover that. And so that's exhausting. You know, it really is exhausting. So that's why, like, when you see these social media influencers, because essentially I would show my lifestyle online, you don't really know what they're doing as far as like their stress level. And for me, my compass in business and in life now is peace. And so when you see that person in the Lambo, you see that person taking trips and they're obviously shooting this for content, they are like they have to shoot that content in order to pay for that trip. They have to shoot that content in order to pay for that car. They have to shoot that content in order to afford the house that they're showing you that they're living in. And so don't get it twisted, guys. Comparison is the thief of joy. And when I started to live that life and recognize and be around other guys who had these, services, whether it was credit, funding, whatever it may be, I started realizing like, man, they don't really have a lot of assets. They just make a lot of income from selling courses, coaching, mentorship, and the marketing is the asset. Like they have to keep putting money back into marketing, and so they have to go take trips. They have to go do all this stuff because why would you want to buy their course or coaching or mentorship if they're not living a life that you desire, right? And so so that's essentially the idea behind the whole thing. And so for me, I recognize now that I should have been socking that money away to actual assets so I don't have to shoot content, so I don't have to do that stuff. Like I said, this is something that I feel like God's calling me to do in this season. But in that season, I was strictly doing content to make sure the business constantly had traffic and had customers to sell to. So it was exhausting, So going back to buying small businesses. So during the time of God humbling me, I ended up getting my insurance license. So I got my life insurance, health insurance, as well as property and casualty, which is for car and house and any other, personal line insurance. And personal line is the industry term. And so when I got that, I didn't really understand what God was doing at the time. I took a week of just everyday studied and took the test. I started studying on Monday and I took the test on Friday and I passed the test. And so got the license. And basically, I was like, all right, well, what am I going to do with this, And so my father, he has an insurance business he's had for over 30 something years. And so he was like, he wanted to close his business. And so in him wanting to close his business, I was like, Dad, I'll just buy your business from you. And I knew he wasn't like trying to do a hard stop, right? And he wasn't looking for a lump sum of cash. So we were able to work out a creative deal to where I could come in, help manage the business, and obviously control some of the cash flow towards my way, right? So that was my first essential acquisition in the small business space, but it was for an insurance agency. And so with that, I learned a lot of lessons in that deal. I learned that when you're in negotiations with somebody, they're like in the spirit of that deal, you need to close the deal. The thing that kills deals is time and letting time go by in between interactions. And so that ended up happening in one instance of that negotiation. Past that, I also learned that you don't need, unlike what I used to do when I was making all this money online. And by the way, for my internet career, I would say I've done over $3 million in revenue from internet businesses, And so when it came to acquisitions, one of the biggest things I learned from a mentor who actually taught me how to do this was that where I was so focused on making so much income from one business and that would afford my lifestyle and all those things, his mindset was I'm trying to make money off of a portfolio of businesses. And so I remember him and we went to a casino resort. We were just hanging out and I was telling him about how much money I was making and he was like, that's awesome. He was like, but imagine making that same amount of money net, but from like multiple businesses that paid you a little bit every month with none of your involvement. You don't have to shoot content. You don't have to do nothing. Like literally they're in your holding company as part of your portfolio and they're all paying you something every single month. And I was like, wow, I never thought of that. He was like, yeah, it's like a different level of freedom. And he's like, and you have operators that run those businesses. And so that was something that I wanted to embark on doing, but obviously I was chasing so much income, I didn't have time to do that. And so once God took it all away, obviously, hey, the biggest gift he gave me was time. So that being my first acquisition, it taught me so much. It taught me how even with your family, a deal can go good or bad, So it also taught me seller psychology and how when someone is selling their business, how do they feel about it? And when you see all these gurus say, oh, you can just go buy a business, no money down, blah, blah, blah. You can, but it's not something you lean with, So so moving forward, my point here is that this has been the thing that I have a lot of passion about. I've been geeking out on. And I think one of the biggest lessons I've learned over the past couple of weeks So I have reached out and obviously been working through other businesses to purchase. And so the statistic is about 90% of small businesses do not sell. So they just sit on the market and then they eventually close. And so so by being a creative deal structure type person, which is what I am, I don't necessarily have to compete with a lot of people, because most people are following social media gurus who probably did a few deals and don't do anymore, and they really don't understand, seller psychology and how to work your way through a deal. And so for me, I was going after businesses in different industries just to kind of see what I would like. And so as I was working these deals, I started realizing that even though I understand, systems and I have really good business acumen on how to run and structure and maintain or manage a business, the biggest thing I learned was that not every industry is an industry you necessarily want to be in, especially starting out. And so, for example, I really love Chinese food. So I went after a Chinese buffet, right? And so this Chinese buffet, it was doing about $2 million a year in revenue, netting about, I'd say, let's call it like 20% of that. So it was about 400,000. And so the thing with it, though, was it had a lot of issues from a legal standpoint. There was tax issues. There was labor issues. Like they got flagged by the Department of Labor, had to pay a huge fine. They had an issue with state taxes. And so it was a business that I liked, and I was able to come in, speak with the seller, actually like stay there for a day and like learn how the business ran, which really only takes a day to really learn. But in seeing it, I was like, man, this is a very successful business, but it's a lot of issues involved, and it just wasn't something I was willing to stress out about, So I moved on from that. Went after another restaurant, which was a all-you-can-eat buffet that was for sale. And so I went there, and this is a place I'm used to eating at. So I kind of knew the owners, and there was a lot of issues there from a standpoint of family entanglements. And so it was such a blessing to kind of experience those things, because I started realizing like, okay, there are certain things like in buying businesses, it's just like being in a relationship with somebody. Like, let's say, like I remember in college, I would date a girl, break up with her, go date another girl, break up with her. And the cool thing about it was I started narrowing down to what I would want in a woman and what problems I can handle, what problems I just can't, right? And so so then I found my wife, and so I ended up marrying my wife, and she has, nobody's perfect, right? So she has problems that I was willing to deal with. And obviously I had problems that she was willing to deal with. So, hey, there we go. Now we're married. So it's the same thing with buying these businesses. You're looking at and seeing what problems are you willing to deal with. So what God came in and broke down to me was a lot of times we look for the harder path in order to grow or move at a faster rate. And in reality, sometimes the easiest path is the fastest way to the next thing. And so I started kind of looking at it. There was another business. It was a day spa that I was looking at buying. Deal was going great. And then towards the end, once again, family entanglement started kind of messing it up because there were so many different people involved, so many hands in the pot. Because as you get to closing, like you start to realize that the real stuff starts to come out, of what's really going on. That's not, I guess, as loud. It's said during you getting closer to closing, but it's not loud, right? And so it gets really loud as you get closer to closing. And what I mean by that is all the things that you didn't know were under the table happening, they start to come out because you got to know about it, because you're about to literally close on the business. And so so that business fell through as well, which was a beautiful experience as well. So what I started thinking was like, all right, certain industries have regulatory bodies that you have to have. Some of them require licenses. Certain industries, they require other things. And those can be good if you have those licenses, because it raises the barrier to entry for other people who want to buy it. Or you have to have a relationship with somebody who has that license that you trust enough to go into business partnership with. And so for me, I didn't have anybody who had those licenses for that spa, like an esthetician license. So I backed up, prayed and asked God, and I was like, all right, so what business should I look at, And I started looking at, just like really blue collar stuff, like landscaping, all this stuff. And I'm like, you know what? I don't care about that. And it's not that I need to care about it to like it. It's just, but I need to know that, I really want to be interested in making sure the business is stable and building systems within it while, it's running. And so I started to realize I literally just spent about 8 or 9 months stabilizing and systemizing my dad's insurance agency from front to back. So the answer that I got from God was just scale acquisitions in the insurance vertical. Just go and buy other insurance agencies that have the same exact problem that your dad's agency had. And it was like, voila. It was like, what an epiphany, right? And so basically now what I am focused on is acquiring another insurance agency. And the reason it's such a like smart and easy move is because when I got into my dad's business, I had to systemize it for 3 months. Like it took 3 months. I was commuting. It's an hour drive, by the way. I'm an hour and a half drive. I was commuting 3 days a week for the first 3 months to really like put all my systems in place, make sure we're tracking everything from A to Z, and then obviously building a relationship with the team that was there, which in this case was my sister, and then getting her buy-in so then she could implement those systems. And so it took 3 months to do that. But after month 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, we're at like month 9 right now. It has been the most smooth sailing thing. It's been maybe a hiccup a week, or every other week. But overall, the hiccup takes 5-10 minutes to fix, right? And so I have all this time to go and get another one. But I don't know why I was thinking to go in some other industry. And so I started realizing it's because it got boring. And so for me, I love excitement. I love new. I love to solve problems. But I realized that boring is good. When I was chasing income, it was always the next thing, the next thing, the next thing. Now that I'm chasing balance sheet, put more assets on the balance sheet, it's not about the next thing. It's about staying boring. So doing the next boring thing. And so the next boring thing is just going to get another insurance agency and taking the same systems that took me 90 days to build in my dad's business and apply it to this business in one day. So come on, that's it, right? So I'm really excited about that because that's the path that I'm on. And not only just the impact I get to make, but the time I get back compared to when I was just chasing income. So one thing I want to kind of pass down to you guys as I kind of button that whole thing up. It's not the vehicle necessarily that you're in. It could be real estate, it could be business, whatever it may be. But your goal should be to add more assets that pay you every single month to your balance sheet. And if it's an affiliate income, if it's certain relationships that you can build that you can monetize later in some way, shape, or form for you and for them, but that passively pays you money or semi-passively pays you money, those are assets on your balance sheet. And the more of those that you have versus income that you have to actively go and make like every single day, 9 to 5, like you're going to have a better life. But the fastest way to get there is to get rid of your liabilities. Get rid of the nice car, get rid of the big old house that's way too big for you and you ultimately can't even afford the upkeep anyways. Sad to say, I got a neighbor right next to me right now. The wind blows, we're disconnecting your water notice that was on his door gets into my yard. And so I look at it and I'm like, oh wow, this dude's getting his water shut off, today. And he's got a nice truck. He's got all this stuff. Like he's living how I used to live, essentially. Trucks, I don't really know, I'm not a truck guy, so I don't know, but I know it was a nice truck. It just looks nice, right? I don't really know what type of truck it is, all that stuff. But my point is that it made me realize, man, when you let your liabilities get out of whack, when you chase that nice car to impress a person who doesn't even care about you, which is things that I did, right? You can put yourself in a bind financially. And so the fastest way to get out of a bind is to just wipe your balance sheet, right? Don't worry about what anybody thinks. People gonna be like, oh, you're gonna think somebody's thinking like, oh man, look at him, he's broke. Oh man, he just had to get rid of that nice car. Oh, he just got rid of that nice house. Listen here, you just wised up because a lot of times they're in that situation. They're the person in that situation. They got a nice car, they got a nice whatever, right? But they gotta keep showing up to work every single day to pay for that nice car and that nice house. And so where you got somebody like myself who did one acquisition and I'm home 6 days a week, so That's that, right? That's perspective. And that's not me saying that out of pride. That's me saying that out of, who's really winning here? You know what I mean? So, so past that, now I want to talk to you guys about patience, all right? So in regards to chasing the balance sheet, adding assets to the balance sheet, it takes a lot more patience than chasing income does. And what I mean by that is, whenever I have my online businesses, I could put sales calls on the calendar this week, and I could close somebody on the phone for $1,000, $2,000, up to $10,000, right? The same week. And so that's amazing, right? But it takes time to do that. Like, it takes a lot of time, your daily time to do that. So there's not much freedom of thought. There's not much time to like sit back and do stuff. You're really hustling. Where with acquisitions, it's really like just kind of like playing golf. Like, you hit the ball, you get on the cart, you just drive up to the next tee, you hit the ball, you get on the cart, you drive up to the next tee. It's very patient. It's very boring. It's very like just so methodical, consistent, but slow. And so when you have high liabilities, you don't have time to be slow. You have to be as fast as you can, because you got to pay for those jokers every single month in the form of expense. So the beauty of having very, very low liabilities and your balance sheet focused is your next acquisition of whatever asset you're buying, it literally becomes something that makes a huge difference in your life when it happens. And what I mean by that is, in buying another business, that business may net me monthly, let's say on the low $3,000, on the high $5,000. But guess what? It's a very low touch business. Once I put systems in place, it takes me, in that case, 90 days. It might take 60 days now because I'm using the same system. After that, it is low maintenance money that's coming in every month. And I got it coming from 2 sources at that point, and then 3, and then 4, and then 5. Right? And that's not including other businesses that we have seasonal that we've built in the past. And so my point is like, sometimes slowing down is the fastest thing you could ever do. And so God has really taught me the power of patience in this season, and contentment, and not trying to rush to the next season. And so I think that's important for anybody watching, or at least if you want to have peace in your life. If you're just like somebody who's like, hustle this, hustle that, and you listen to Grant Cardone all day, 10x this, 10x that, that dude ain't 10x and no peace, right? So my peace is 100x, because I know 100% that God is my provider. Whatever deals for me, he's going to give to me, right? He's going to put right in my path, and then can't nobody stop it. Whatever deals that are not for me, he's going to get out of my way, because his peace is not going to be there, because that's what I'm looking for. So I think that should be your compass as well, if that's what you want. You want presence. You want to be able to spend time with your kids, your wife. You want to be able to, value the experiences that life has for you. You got to operate in patience, and that's the fastest way to wherever you want to go, and contentment in that season of waiting. The other thing, it also creates a lot of margin for you when you have that. When you have the patience, you have margin to be able to do the things that you want to do. And what I mean by that is, it could be financial margin, it could be time margin, right? And those things matter more to me, to be able to have the freedom of thought. Like, every week I have a day where I just sit down and I think all day. So I'll go to the health club, I'll work out, drink water, eat high protein diet that tastes really good. And I just think, and I really talk to God. I talk to ChatGPT, right, about my ideas, things I want to do. And then obviously the next day I can go implement those and put those into action. So it not only will make you, when you slow down, you wipe your liabilities, and you focus on the balance sheet and adding assets to the balance sheet, that cash flow every month, and obviously give you more time, you become a better husband, you become a better father, you become a better man as an individual. Like, literally in the past 6 months, from me slowing down over the past year and a half, and obviously doing my first acquisition in the insurance space, because I've had so much time, I've been able to focus on my health. I ended up losing, I ended up losing about 20 pounds, and I'm down from, I was like a 41-inch waist, right, making, 50, 60,000 a month in revenue, 41-inch waist. Now I'm down to a 35. My goal is 32 by the time I'm 33, which is in April. And so it's just funny to me how a lot of times chasing money, and in chasing that money, the time that we get robbed from us, we sacrifice a lot of other things. We sacrifice our health, we sacrifice our family, all this stuff. And it's really to buy stuff that you think your family cares about, and really they don't. They care about you and the time they get to spend with you. And so one of the things I want to impart to anybody watching this is your kids do not care about how much money you make. Your kids do not care about, any of that. Obviously, they need lights on, right? They need food in the refrigerator, all that stuff. And I believe if you lean on God, He'll provide that. I'm not saying do nothing. I'm talking about lean on Him for the guidance to what to do, and He'll provide that. But ultimately, when you truly surrender it, you start to realize that they just really care about you and your presence. There would be times that I would go to Universal, Disney, all this stuff, and I wasn't present. I was physically there, but I wasn't mentally there. And so my kids trying to show me something, they're trying to go ride with me. I'm like, hey, hold on, I got to take this call real quick, whatever it may be. So it's like I'm not really there and I'm not really even enjoying it, right? But the money that I am making, I'm using that to buy that experience for them, but really not for me. Where now, we went to the park, just the other day with the kids, and they don't even ask me about theme parks. They're happy to go to the park down the street, which is free. And guess what? While I'm there, I'm present. I'm pushing them on the swing, right? We're doing the little merry-go-round thing. They're going down the slide, and I'm picking them up, putting them up on the jungle gym so they can go down the slide, right? That's way more valuable to them than me being at a theme park, and I'm like, all right, y'all go ride that ride. I'm going to take this call. So just don't get it twisted, man. Don't get it twisted. You can't shrink these kids back into who they used to be. Every day they're growing, and so should you every single day. But growing towards peace, not towards, strife and more work. All right. So that's it. I think I hammered it home. But you guys, I'm going to continue to do videos, most likely once a week, one every 2 weeks, whatever I feel like doing. Right. But I'm going to kind of document this journey for you guys. And but I hope you learned something from this. So have a blessed day, and I'll see you on the next one.